Lois Wise wrote, "Dear friends, no matter how we find them, are as essential to our lives as breathing in and breathing out." We're all here today to celebrate the wonderful life of our friend and relative, Art. As Del just mentioned, his relationship with Art went back to the early 60s. Now, Joan and I weren't around yet when Del and Art met. However, we did come into the picture shortly thereafter. There are many stories that could be told about Art, and some that shouldn't be told. I'd like to share just a couple with you from my memory bank. When Art and Joan were dating and Del and I were dating, the guys decided that they wanted to impress us with a lovely meatloaf dinner in their apartment. They even bought red and green light bulbs and put them in the pole lamp to create a romantic atmosphere. And they put soft music on the stereo. Well, the meal was excellent. And when it came time for their special dessert, they went into the kitchen and pulled some dessert plates from the cupboard. These were plates that hadn't been used very often, and for all I know, were never used before. They served Joan and me, and then they went back into the kitchen to serve themselves. For whatever reason, Del ran his finger across one of the dessert plates and found that the plate was absolutely filthy. What to do? They discussed exchanging Joan's and my plates, but if they did that, then we would know that there was a problem, and remember, they were trying to impress us. So they did absolutely nothing with our plates. However, Art did look at Del and say, "But wash ours." Joan and I never heard this story until after we were all married, and were reminiscing, the four of us were reminiscing one evening. Our families did many things together when the children were young. One Saturday afternoon, Joan and I went to the movies, and Art and Del stayed at our house with Christine and Paul, and our three children, Eric, Kurt, and Kelly. When Joan and I returned, Art and Del had a story for us. Apparently, when the children were playing, at some point, Christine, all of age 5, turned to Eric and said, "Eric, you're sexy." Eric did not respond. So Christine pursued it and said, "Eric, you're sexy." At which point Eric turned to Christine in disgust and said, "I am not, I'm 5½." You know, we've told that story many times over the years, and I'm still convinced that Christine picked up that story, that phrase, "sexy," from Art, although I never got him to admit it. I am so grateful that old Art, as he called himself, was part of my life for so many years, and that we shared some very special times together. I'm reminded of a song that I sang at Girl Scout camp many moons ago, and I'm sure some of you know the words as well. "Make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver and the other gold." Art was definitely a gold in my life.
Kathy Tarrington lived on Weber Avenue, where the neighbors got together for street parties and watched each other's kids grow up. I assume the kids watched the parents grow up as well. Kathy?
Hi, my name is Kathy Tarrington, and I just want to share some memories of Art with you all. I am not a public speaker, and I hope I can get through this, so if I read part of it, please excuse me. Our little family moved to Weber Avenue in 1969. 1969. Several years later, another family moved in on Weber Avenue, and it was Joan and Art, Paul and Christine. There was immediate friendships made at the end of our little street. The Burfords, the Macks, the Elmers, more kids who seemed to come from everywhere to play on our little brick street. Had a wonderful time. The kids had a little code, if you yelled car, everybody would just scurry to the curb, car would go by, they would come back. And we had, in the summer, kind of an unwritten rule, and the kids played and played, and when the street lights went on, everybody went in just to take their bath and go to bed and start up the next day. And the adults who were already friends on the street welcomed Joan and Art with open arms, and I don't want to embarrass Paul, but the kids played a lot of cops and robbers. Now Joan and Art said that Paul could not have a gun for the game. Now Paul's an intelligent kid. He picked up a stick and carried on. That's your dad, right? He was a very smart guy. And now on Christmas morning in our neighborhood, it was kind of a tradition that everybody opened their presents, and afterwards would run through the neighborhood, everybody telling what they got. And our doorbell rang, and there stood Paul with a grin from ear to ear, and he had on a bandolier, an army helmet, and a gigantic gun. Yeah, that was your daddy. So his parents relented. Yeah. So we don't know if Santa brought it or his parents relented. And speaking of Christmas, after all the presents and the food, when there was a lull in the afternoon, we would regroup, pack up some goodies, go to just somebody's house, the kids, the grandparents, the parents, and we just had a wonderful time. Yeah, it was just wonderful memories of Weber Avenue. And as times changed, and I soon became a single parent with 2 little kids, my little house on Weber Avenue, which was quite old, needed repairs every now and then. Now we all know that Art was an academic, and he was known for his wonderful insight and fair play. As a handyman, well, but he was always there to help me when I needed. And one day my garbage disposal died. So I went to Sears and bought another one, and who was there but Art? A few choice words later, and reading the instructions to the T, Art and I put in a garbage disposal, and we were always proud of it. That was one of our big achievements. And another time, my gutters were overflowing, and I wasn't about to go up a ladder. And up went Art, and I'm standing down there trying to help, and all of a sudden I'm covered with slimy leaves and wet and so forth, but we got it done. And so it went. We enjoyed life and we watched our kids grow. But as time goes on, things change. I remarried to my wonderful husband, Ron, and our new family moved thousands of miles away. But friends stay in touch, and we did. When we would return to the area, we would get together and always had a good time. My children would come back to Akron in the summers, and my daughter and Christine would get together. And through my marriage, we moved many times, but we continued to stay in touch. And when we met, the conversations changed from kids and family to world news and politics. And much to Art's surprise, he and Ron were on the same wavelength. And the interaction was always lively and immensely informative. And Joan and I even got to say a few things. As luck would have it, Ron retired and we moved to Florida. And we moved to the town next to Venice. So we were there with Joan and Art. And for 4 years, we had a great time visiting and dining out and talking politics. You may know about the Florida Thanksgivings. Art, we would be very smug at having our Thanksgiving dinners. And Art and Joe would come to our house, and anybody else who was in town was more than welcome. And sometimes we just had many tables for Thanksgiving. And we gathered at our house, and Art would prepare his turkey, and it had to be cooked upside down, and it had to be stuffed with an orange, and that was the rule. And then Art made his famous cranberry sauce, and I know he had a name, but I don't remember for his stuffing. It was something that was old Art's what? Famous stuffing. So we had that, and then he usually would bring a vegetable because he would read a recipe, and it was always an experimental vegetable. But we always had it, and it was very, very good. And then we'd sit around the pool and laugh and eat dinner and say, oh, our friends up there in the frozen north, look at us, aren't we great? And there was many a time we were out there in pretty heavy sweaters, but we did it. So, and then on Sundays, we would meet Joan and Art at Perkins, and we'd linger after breakfast, solving the world's problems. And we always look forward to Art and Joan's homemade sauerkraut and pork dinners served with their homemade wine. And it always amazed me that when we got together, it was like we'd just seen them the week before, but many times it had been several years. In 2007, my husband and I moved to North Carolina to be closer to our children. And as ever, we kept in touch. Last September, we took a trip out west, and we stopped to spend the night with Joan and Art. And of course, we went to dinner at Papa Joe's and had my favorite sauerkraut balls. And on the way back, we again stopped to see Joan and Art. We made plans for what we were going to do in the spring. So we were devastated when we heard, just a short time later, the course his medical condition was taking. And again, we kept in touch throughout his treatment, and were reassured by the optimistic reports. When we received Joan's email, we were speechless, and no words could express our sadness. Friendship is a wonderful gift, which we should cherish with all our hearts. We have acquaintances that come and go, but true friends are always with us.